welcome back to the Adventures in Collecting YouTube channel, where we take a closer look at the toys we talk about on the show. And today we are diving back into the DC Multiverse line, specifically the Snyder Cut, with the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive release, the Gold Label Armored Darkseid. So diving back into, of course, the Snyder Cut. This is the version of one of the versions of Darkseid that we see in the film. We don't really get to see him perform too much action, as we mostly see him in the non-armored version from the flashback, but at the end of the film, of course, when that little portal is opened, we do get a glimpse of armored Darkseid, and of course that's how he looks mostly in the comics, how we're familiar to seeing him. So the box here is the standard kind of box. We can see the Justice League. Of course, we have the Justice League 2021, the Snyder Cut logo there, the nice gold label. We can see the card there in the back, as well as Darkseid himself and his weapon. On the back, of course, we do have the cross cell, so we can see the full Snyder Cut array of figures: Aquaman, Batman, Cyborg, The Flash, Superman, the unarmored Darkseid, and then Steppenwolf, and then the card art here. And again, continuing with the gold label, the card art is black and white. So yeah, with that, let's get this guy open. Let's see if we can fit him in the light box. This might be another one where we're gonna have to do the old desk trick, but let's take a closer look at Darkseid.
Anti-life is found, Assad, and we will stop at nothing to possess it.
Alright, and here we have Darkseid out of the package, and gonna be honest with you, I had some problems with him, and we're gonna go over some of them. I had to do basically a little bit of work to get him to where we are now, and we'll go over all of that. I know it's kind of a rare thing for us to start off with a gripe in one of these videos, but this bad boy needed some work before we could even review him. So let's go over his accessories real quick. Of course, we get the trading card, as I mentioned at the top there. You know, his Snyder Cut card here. Again, really nice black and white treatment here. The card, it is not a foil card like some of the other gold label cards, like the King Shark one that we saw recently, but still, nice card. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a DC Multiverse figure without the DC Multiverse stand. As you can see, he does not need a stand to, in fact, stand, but, you know, never gonna knock a base. And then his last accessory here is his staff that we see him hold in the film. As you can see, he is able to hold it easily with one hand. It has a really nice deco scheme to it. You know, really great paint job throughout. It's not heavy at all, so you know, I'm not worried about like the Shao Kahn issue where it's gonna droop over time. His hand, though, is super hard, so it's kind of difficult to get in and out of his hand. And it is, like other McFarlane weapons, it is very flexy, so, you know, I would assume that if you are holding it in a certain way, you know, maybe if you're holding it near the edge, you will start to get that slow droop to it, so just be careful how you have him hold it. Yeah, there is a nice little grippy piece here in the middle that you should probably focus on for him to hold, but as you can see, really great detail throughout, really nice black wash, it looks metal, very well done there. So on to the actual figure itself. So on the surface, first and foremost, this figure, I think the design is absolutely killer. I think they nailed Darkseid from the film. I think even if you are a comic book collector and you're not collecting the Filmverse figures, I think this is a more than passable entry for your comic book collection for Darkseid. I mean, he's got the armor, he's got the symbol on his chest here. The armor is scaled throughout, goes all the way across his back onto his gauntlets, his boots, the cragginess of his skin, the texture and paint throughout. I mean, the one thing that, you know, you could say what you will about McFarlane figures, but the one thing that they never seem to miss on is really the kind of sculpt and deco of their figures. You know, it really is fantastic. So in the deco area, before we get into the articulation, had a couple of issues with things. So his wrist guard here was really extended out from the way that he was packaged. He had, his wrist was basically like that in the package, and when I moved his wrist back down to a static position, the gauntlet piece was stuck, flared out like that. So what I had to do was I had to dunk him into some hot water, so that way I could wrap a rubber band around it and get it kind of close back to form. It's still not perfect. I'm probably going to run it through again. Speaking of hot water, I needed a lot for him. His double jointed elbows were both stuck. His wrist rotation was stuck on both hands, as was his wrist articulation was stuck on both hands. What was really bad on this figure, and it's a shame, were his feet. So I couldn't articulate the feet up or down, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of articulation there. I couldn't spin them at the ankle, and as you know, with the McFarlane figures, they have this kind of ball joint system here. I'll see if I can slide his shin guard up here so that way you can see. So it covers, the shin guard covers the articulation point nicely. It is still that ball joint. So as you know, with McFarlane figures, in order to sometimes get a standing position, you need to be able to rotate the ball in one direction and then rotate the foot separately, so that way you can achieve a standing position, or access kind of the swivel part of his feet. So I needed to heat those up, and when I heated them up, I mean, you can kind of feel that the one foot, this foot, still has that ratchet and locks into position, whereas this one is now kind of loose, and he is a heavy figure, so I'm a little concerned, if I need to put him on this foot, this one kind of running away. So just be careful. Go easy if you get this guy. Make sure that you're not forcing any joints. If you need to, apply some heat, whether it's from a blow dryer or a cup of hot water. It's definitely necessary. Take your time, because this is technically a limited edition figure, so I don't know how many of these we're going to see in the wild, so just keep that in mind. Before we get into the other points of articulation, the other thing I want to call out too here is the back of his skirt. So this feels, it's a heavy piece of soft plastic, and it is held on by just this teeny tiny little living hinge on the back of his skirt. And I could almost feel it breaking as I'm using it, and it honestly scares the living daylights out of me. So again, just be careful with this flap back here. As far as I'm concerned, it's only a matter of time before that hinge gives out. So just again, word to the wise there. So nitpicks aside, or I should say problems aside, let's get into the bulk of this figure, because there actually is a lot to get into here. The articulation is fantastic. So, he has a lot of range of motion in his head. He can look up, he can look down. He does have a double ball joint system there. So, you get a lot of really good movement out of his head. The shoulders, we have the standard ball joints, but, again, a lot of movement out of them. We have double jointed elbows that work really nicely. We have wrist articulation and swivel, which is nice because it's not on that ball joint. So, if you move his wrist like that, you will see exposed kind of ratchets there, but I think overall, aesthetically, it looks nicer without having that ball joint there. In terms of the abdomen, we do have a single abdomen articulation here, the lower abdomen. He can bend down about that far, he can bend back about that far. Mine is, as you can see, a little wobbly. He's not failing to hold positions for me, so that's for sure not a deal breaker of any kind. But just know he is a little wobbly. His legs, so Darkseid could totally do the splits. he can kick forward, and he can kick back substantially. We do have the a double jointed knee, which is really nice. Or excuse me, a single jointed knee that you get quite a bit of movement out of here. I'm just double checking to make sure it's not double jointed. Yeah, it's a single jointed knee. But what's nice is you do get some calf swivel there, so it does swivel at the knee. You don't get the upper thigh swivel, but of course you do get that. And then as I mentioned with the feet, we have the standard up and down. We have the nice toe articulation, and then the pivot and swivel, depending on how you line up that joint at the bottom. So let's do some size comparisons real quick, see how he looks with some other figures from both the DC world as well as other stuff that McFarlane's putting out. So I think first and foremost, it's probably fair to compare him to some figures from the Snyder Cut. So here he is next to Black Suit Soups, and I think the scale works really well there. I think it matches up. And then someone who's just a little bit taller. Here he is next to Aquabro, and again, same thing. I think it works really well. You can kind of see the pieces of the movie kind of fitting together here. And then here he is next to Wonder Woman from Wonder Woman 84. Taking the Snyder Cut figures out here, or the DCEU figures out, here's how he looks next to a Batman figure. So this is my favorite Batman that they've done so far. This is the Arkham Knight Batman. You guys have seen this a couple of times in our videos. And if you want to see him next to a comic book figure, here he is next to the Rebirth Green Lantern. So again, I think the scale works really well. As you could see, because of kind of the animated nature of the figure anyway, I think it looks really well, or it fits really well with even comic book and video game figures. And then the last two I wanted to show you. This is just another big, bulky figure that McFarlane has put out recently. That's part of the DC, technically part of the DCEU, I guess. Here he is next to King Shark. And he's taller than King Shark. He's definitely not as wide, but I think again, scale-wise, I think you're looking at something that works pretty well. And then lastly, just another figure from the DC Universe, figure that he kind of interacts with. Another bad guy. Here he is next to the Storm Collectibles, Injustice Gods Among Us, Ares. And again, I think that works really well. Darkseid is an imposing character. As big as Ares is, I think it works that Darkseid is a little bit bigger than him. As you guys know, I feel like these some of these figures that Storm Collectibles are putting out for Injustice Gods Among Us are some of the best DC figures you can get right now. I wasn't necessarily too crazy about just the design of the Darkseid from the video game, which is why I held off on that. But I'm really happy with, ultimately really happy with this Darkseid. Even with his problems, I still think it's a really great figure. It looks really cool. Let's turn the camera around. Let's wrap this up. Alright, so as you can see, little work had to go into this guy. There are some things about it that scare me. Is it a perfect figure? No, it is not. It's not a perfect figure. Does that mean I dislike it? Absolutely not. I think this is fantastic. I think it is a great figure. I think it is an accurate representation of Darkseid from the film, and overall I would recommend it. Just temper your expectations, be easy on it. It is a $40 figure. You're not paying $140 for it, which figures this size oftentimes cost. So I think overall, is this none of the McFarlane figures are for kids. These figures are not meant to be bashed around and played hard with. They are certainly collectibles, and they're for adult collectors. So I think all of that being said, does it suck sometimes when you have to work to get your figure into a usable state? Absolutely, it does. It's not fun. It takes a little bit of the fun out of it, for sure, but ultimately it's much better than having a broken toy, especially when it is something limited and it's not like you can take it out of the box, realize that it's not working right, return it to the store, have it swapped for a different one. With some figures, that's simply not an option, and he's one of them. So just keep that in mind. Those of you who are able to come across him, those of you who come across the other one, the unarmored version, you might need to help out his joints a little bit, so just exercise some patience. As always, make sure you hit that follow button down there, or that subscribe button down there, so that way you don't miss videos like this. While you're down there, hit that notification icon so that way you get notifications when we post new videos. While you're liking and subscribing to things, make sure you follow us here at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter, where we're constantly posting toy news, toy photography, and all the other fun things that are going on within the toy community. And then, of course, the podcast. So we're live with a new episode every Monday. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts simply by searching for Adventures in Collecting, or you can hit the link in the description below, which will take you to our website, and you can find links to all of the things that I just mentioned. Stick around after the fade for some additional photos here of Darkseid with the rest of the DC figures. Maybe we'll do a little Darkseid versus Thanos. I don't know. Stick around after the fade and you'll find out. As always, until next time, don't forget where Earth is, like he did.